Alright guys, Willem here back with more Disco Elysium. We're like 2.5 hours into this and we're still like in the same spot, but also listening to my own video I'm watching in the background. But I just want to see something.
It's a game I really thought I would love just as much, but I found myself very underwhelmed by it, and that is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It's a very solid 8 out of 10 game. Well, I was expecting a 9 out of 10. I was expecting this to be a pretty like mind-blowing experience, but it just came out as kind of it is also a single-player Star Wars game, and that seems to take a lot of inspiration from like Uncharted, mixed in with combat like Dark Souls. And I really like combat system. I thought it was really fun. It really made you feel like a Jedi using the Force and using your lightsaber and stuff in combat. I think that was fun. The base gameplay again is pretty solid. Again, a lot like Uncharted, just running around, trying to find your way from A to B. I thought that was great. There are a couple things that annoyed me. I mean, this game is structured like a Metroidvania game where there's a lot of backtracking, but then you backtrack in different ways. But I feel like in this game, the backtracking just annoyed me. I don't think it flowed nearly as well as something like God of War 2018, where that used the Metroidvania style of gameplay as well, but I never felt annoyed with any of the backtracking like I did with Jedi Fallen Order. Also, narratively, I just felt like this game was so pointless. I mean, yes, you get introduced to these characters and you get to see how they come together, but outside of that, this game does nothing narratively, and I felt like that was very underwhelming, considering all the praise I heard about it beforehand. So overall, for me, I just felt like this game was underwhelming. Again, I didn't think it was bad. I enjoyed my experience with the game. I just didn't find it as great as what other people were saying. It's still a solid Star Wars single-player game, probably the best one we've had in a very, very long time. I still find myself pretty underwhelmed by it. Now, number 7 is a game that I really had a lot of fun with. Now, it's not a game I would consider like a masterpiece by any means, but it's a game that I just simply had fun playing, and that is The Outer Worlds. Now, this game did get almost great reviews, and it's considered like one of the best games of 2018. I don't personally think that, to be honest. I think this game is full of glitches. I think narratively it's kind of dumb, but I don't even consider this really that great of a game. I just had fun playing it. And it's really as simple as that. I mean, like, I had fun doing all these random missions, meeting all these weird characters, exploring all these new worlds, and that's really fundamentally what the game is, and it's fun. I mean, it's Fallout ripoff. I mean, it's made by a team in Fallout New Vegas, and they essentially just made a new Fallout game without using the Fallout property. And that's pretty much what the game is. But it is, it's fun. Like, it's a solid game, a game I had more fun with than any of the games I've talked about so far. And probably even more fun with than the next two games I've talked about this. But in terms of its actual quality, I didn't feel comfortable putting it above the next couple games on the list. It's not a bad game, it's a solid experience, but for me, not really anything of true depth. Now, number 6, which is a game I have already talked about on the channel, it's a game I really enjoyed. I was actually very surprised at how much I enjoyed this game. That is Devil May Cry 5. Now, the Devil May Cry series as a whole is just a series that's not for me, and because of that, I was really expecting this to be kind of underwhelming, but I actually really enjoyed it. Like, I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed this game. It's a very solid hack and slash game, very similar to previous Devil May Cry games with minor improvements, but I was very impressed by these three characters in this game, how each of those characters are diverse on their own right, and I really like what they did narratively here. I thought the narrative of this game was really, really fun. I like the way they told it, where they're jumping around time periods. I really like certain mystery elements. I really like how the characters connected to the overall narrative. I just found Devil May Cry 5 to be a great game, and again, I probably had more fun with The Outer Worlds than this game, but I was actually more impressed by what this game had to offer than The Outer Worlds, so for me, it ranks here number 6. Now, number 5, I would consider, to be honest, the most perfect game of this year. And for me, the least flawed game of 2019 is Resident Evil 2, and I really enjoyed my experience playing this. However, it's just an experience I don't really feel like I'd ever do again. That's not why I have it at number 5 here. Again, like, I think it's a better, I think it's the best game of the year. I think 100% hands down, over time, everything. I think it is the best game of the year. However, it's still connected with me. I'm not a big Resident Evil guy. I love Resident Evil 4 back in the day, but I'm not really a big Resident Evil person. Never played Resident Evil 2 for more than, what, like 30 minutes, an hour, the original time out. Honestly, played Resident Evil 2 here. I didn't finish the Leon story. I did not go back and play the Claire story. I wouldn't mind doing it at some point, but to be honest, I think it takes a lot out of me just to play one time. I'm not a big survival horror guy when it comes to games. Horror films, I'm fine. Games, not as much. I remember I played Resident Evil 7, it scared the shit out of me. And Resident Evil 2 is still kind of more the same. It's not as much. I mean, I don't think I was as terrified to play Resident Evil 2 as I was with 7, but still, things like Mr. X is like really freaking terrifying. I just adored this game's game design. I think it was really impressive how, despite most of this game, like the first half of this game when you're in the police department, most of that is just backtracking. I mean, you're doing a lot of just going to rooms, finding like keys or ways to get into new areas that you haven't been before, and going to those new areas and then finding more new things that you can do, and you just do it over and over and over again. And that's something that you would think would be really boring and really annoying and tedious to do, but for me, I found it a lot of fun. I found that to be one of the most fun elements of the game, and I feel like for them to make that fun, that's very, very impressive. And also just to see how much of an improvement this is from the original game, I think that's really great as well. I even think narratively, I thought this game was a lot of fun. I think they were able to tell a fun, coherent narrative here. So, I mean, I have almost no faults with this game, outside of the fact that it's not really my type of game. That's really the only thing keeping it out of the number 1 spot. I do think this is a perfect game for what it's trying to be. But again, at the end of the day, it isn't for me, so I have it ranked here at number 5. Now, number 4 is a game that really, really shocked me. I did not expect to love this game as much as I did, and that is Judgment. And I have not played the opposite games, but Judgment here is a spin-off. It's a game that's completely disconnected from those games, so I decided to give it a shot. I was really surprised how much I liked it. I absolutely enjoyed it. It just feels like an evolution of Shenmue. I mean, I personally love Shenmue. The opposite games were kind of spiritual successor to Shenmue, and from my understanding, do it a lot better. And playing Judgment, I fully understand why. I mean,
Wait, oh, it was self-stuff here.
Now, I still love Shenmue for like the epic revenge narrative that's trying to tell, but in terms of gameplay, Judgment does it better.
Oh, so that one,
There's a lot of backtracking, I will admit that. But the shops you can go to, there's like
oh, so do we not actually put things into this? It's just like automatic? Oh, no, we do have.
And I thought the case had some pretty interesting twists and turns here and there. I think the combat was pretty solid, definitely better than what we got from Shenmue 3. No, I just really like the detective aspects of this game. I know it's flawed.
We can level up.
Really, really terrible. There's a lot of filler in the game where they force you to do side quests for like no real reason. Overall, I just really had a lot of fun with this game. Again, I thought narratively this was just a really fun detective story. So we really enjoyed it. Ranks here number 4. Now number 3, and these top 3 for me were very, very close. I constantly switched around between these top 3. And really, I made a last second change for my number 1, but number 3 here has kind of stayed where it is for a little while, and that is A Plague Tale: Innocence. I think Plague Tale is another one of the best games of the year. I think like Resident Evil 2.
Again, at this point, I think I have Plague Tale number 1.
Great narrative-based single-player experience where most of the game revolves around stealth sections, which again is something that I didn't think I would like. I'm not a big stealth guy, but I think this game does it very well, where it kind of turns the entire game into a big
I think I'm gonna logic.
puzzle. I guess really that's the way you look at stealth games as a whole. I really like the crafting system in this game. I thought visually this game is very, very impressive. Narratively, I thought this game was great, and I really like the relationship between Amicia and Hugo. I think the lore of this series is very interesting, and I'm really interested to see the future of the Plague Tale series. Like, I just think overall, this is a very fun single-player experience with a very strong narrative. Essentially everything that I would love in a game, but at the same time, it is pretty small scale. I mean, it is not as grand of a game as these next 2 games I'll be talking about, but because that kind of lands here at number 3. But at the end of the day, again, all these games are very, very close for me. Now number 2, and this was tough. Number 2 here was my number 1 game of the year for a very long time. Number 2 has to be Death Stranding, and I loved Death Stranding. I know this game gets a lot of hate. It's like, oh my god, it's just a delivery simulator. Yeah, I can't believe it is. That is what it is. But I really enjoyed that delivery simulator. I think the level progression within the game is very solid. I really like delivering packages from location to single mission. I like how they come on introducing new things, how you deliver these things after every single mission. I like how the missions were structured, where each chapter would focus around a certain character, and you doing tasks for that character. And overall, I really enjoyed the gameplay, despite it being relatively bare bones. But the narrative is the thing that really sticks out to my mind here, honestly. I think narratively, this is a really impressive feat of world building and lore. And out of any game that came out this year, this was the game I was the most impressed with what it was able to do narratively. And the type of narratives that really stick out to my mind are those epic tales that really have this massive sense of world building and lore. That's why I love something like One Piece so much. And I feel like Death Stranding is a good setup for a massive scale narrative like that. I really love the character of Sam Porter Bridges, and I think he has a great arc throughout the course of this game. Yes, the narrative does get convoluted here and there, but overall I still had so much fun with it. And the reason why I got bumped down from number 1 to number 2 isn't because I like this game any less than I did when I originally played it. It's mostly because I feel like the game that's at number 1 has continued to stick with me more than Death Stranding. But I still enjoyed Death Stranding as much as I did the first time I played it. It's a great game overall. It lands here at number 2. But at number 1, the number 1 game of the year is a game I haven't already talked about on the channel. But even when I was talking about it there, I was kind of a bit more mixed on it. I definitely enjoyed it a lot, but I was definitely a little bit lower on it than I am now. And now I've come to really enjoy this game. I can't believe I'm saying this. This is my game of the year for 2019, my favorite game out of all these I've played, and that's Kingdom Hearts 3. And I don't know what it is. It's really weird because I finished it and it ranks number 3 initially. And I thought about more. I was like, okay, I think it's better than Plague Tale. And I thought about more. And I continued to watch videos of other people playing Kingdom Hearts 3, watch videos of people playing Remind, start analyzing the narrative of Kingdom Hearts. And I was just like, I can't not put Kingdom Hearts 3 at number 1 now. It's like I feel so connected to this franchise at this point, despite not even liking the gameplay that much. I think it's fine. It's not something that, again, I'm not someone that plays games for difficulty. I think if I were to play data battles that are in Remind, I would be really frustrated. But for me with Kingdom Hearts 3, it's really the narrative that really connected me. And like, again, the Disney World stuff, I don't care about any of that. Kingdom Hearts, such a great conclusion to the Xehanort saga. It really wraps up so many storylines in a very satisfying way. We see all these characters that we never thought we would see together finally come together, and it really just feels like the Avengers Endgame for Kingdom Hearts. And I really adored that. And I still stand by this. I do really enjoy the combat system of this game more so than the previous games. I mean, yes, it's a bit dumbed down from what we got in Kingdom Hearts 2, but I really enjoy it still. I mean, I had more fun with the gameplay of Kingdom Hearts 3 than I did with any of the previous games in the series. I really just love conclusions to massive storylines, and that is Kingdom Hearts 3's biggest boon for me. Like, I feel like all the setup that Kingdom Hearts has done through the course of, 17 years, all led to the last, 6 hours of Kingdom Hearts 3, and that 6 hours is one of the greatest blocks of gaming I've ever experienced. And because of that, I just felt it was very tough to not rank it at number 1, despite me thinking that, Death Stranding and Plague Tale were more consistent experiences the entire way through. For me, Kingdom Hearts 3 just had the best moments of the entire year for me, so for me, I have to rank it here at number 1, and essentially name it my game of the year for 2019. So there we go, that is every game I have played from the year of 2019. Yeah, that was long. This was a long process. I started playing these games, at the end of November of 2019, so the fact that it took me this long to eventually play all these games and make this video, it really feels like a long journey that's finally concluded here, but there we go. Yeah, I've been thinking about this a bit here. I would actually like to go back and do a similar video to this, or previous years of gaming, like 2018, 2017, 2016, like go back in time, a year at a time. I think that's something I might attempt to do down the road, but again, it's probably going to take a while because, again, this video's a forever make. But yeah, I had a lot of fun while making it, so at least there's that. But that's the video. That's every game I played from the year 2019, and also my ranking of every game I finished from 2019. Thank you for watching.
Alright, let's watch the, where is it? There we go.
Keep your sound on with your screen off and listen uninterrupted. Try YouTube Premium on us.
New video. In this video, I'm finally getting around to making my 2020 year in gaming video, where I talk about every game that I have played from the year of 2020. Now, I did do a video similar to this for 2019, and just like that video, this is really late. Honestly, I ended up spending a decent amount of time playing most of the games I had any semblance of interest in from the year of 2020, and it's now time to be ranking them. And this video will be structured very similar to how the 2019 video went, where first off we're going to be talking about the games that I did not get around to playing at all, then we'll be talking about the games I did play but I did not play enough of, or did not feel like they were justified in putting onto the list itself, and then we'll obviously end it with the ranking, and obviously end up with talking about my game of the year for 2020. So with that preamble out of the way, let's get into the games I did not get around to playing. And first up, do not expect any Switch games, Xbox One games, or VR games to be on this list, as most of my gaming is on PS4 at this point. I mean, I do have a PC that can possibly run certain games, but at the end of the day, like, again, most of my gaming is on PlayStation consoles, so because of that, this list will not include Animal Crossing New Horizons, it will not include Hades, which is a game I really do want to play, but just did not get around to doing so. This list will not include Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which I hear is really good, and did not play it, and same thing goes for Half-Life Alyx, which is the VR Half-Life game. Sounds cool, but not a big VR guy, and also just not a big Half-Life guy either. Now, outside of those, I also did not get around to playing Journey to the Savage Planet, which is one I had every intention of playing before making this list, but just did not get around to it. It is kind of a first-person adventure game. One been opposed to playing it, but just did not get around to buying it, and really just didn't feel like going out of my way to play it before making this video. Also, I did not play Crash Bandicoot 4, which Crash Bandicoot is a series that I loved when I was a kid. I mean, I was a big fan of Crash Bandicoot 3, I like Rapid Cortex. Yeah, I don't know if I need to listen to this.
I can vouch for her. I can vouch for all my stuff.
Let's see
None
the
of us
actual
here is
ranking.
tampered with the crime scene.
The worst game I played from the year 2020 is a game that I don't even know why I bothered playing this game at all. And that game is Fast and Furious Crossroads. Now, this is a game that I got for very cheap.
I forgot I did that fake out.
But I bought this intending it to be a so bad that it's good sort of experience, but it turns out it's just bad. Now, this isn't like the worst game ever made or anything. It's not like a fundamentally broken game that is unplayable. It's just a straight up boring game that has really no appeal to it, outside the fact that it has the Fast and Furious property attached to it. I mean, it does have characters from the movie showing up. It does have a really boring story attached to it. It does have some driving missions, which I will be honest, like a couple of them are cool, but then there's others that are just really annoying missions with really dumb objectives. As a whole, this is just not a fun game. It's not a game that I'll ever play again. I don't even know why I finished it to begin with. I mean, to be fair, this is only like a 4-hour game. Like, it's not long at all. But even within that 4-hour period, there were points where I was like, should I even bother finishing this? Like, I really don't care about this game. But I just continued playing it and eventually just ended, so I was like, okay, I guess I gotta put on the list. So it's here at number 19 at the very bottom. Now, number 18, we have a game from a company that I do have a bit awards for, though this is just simply not a good game, and that is Twin Mirror, developed by Not Entertainment, the company behind Life is Strange, and maybe a game we'll be talking about later on the list. But Twin Mirror is just not good. I mean, it's an adventure game in the sense of Life is Strange, about a guy that returns to his hometown after the death of his friend, and he investigates his friend's death, and I mean, story-wise, this is just so bland. Character-wise, I think characters here are some of the most bland characters in the history of adventure games. Like, I really couldn't tell you an interesting thing about any of the characters within this game. All of them bored me, and
so I guess we should actually pay attention to this. Let's get close to screen because I can't fucking read this. And very clearly this was made for PC.
Really, for me, I mean, this is a game that just completely fell flat on every aspect in my eyes. So for that, it's here at number 18. Now, number 17, we're on to another adventure game, but I do feel like this one, while it is also kind of dumb and not super eventful, I did feel like my overall experience with this game was definitely stronger than
I guess we'll go to Kuma.
Now, last year on my 2019 list, the bottom game on that list was Fantasy Man of Dawn, and I do feel like Little Hope is definitely an improvement upon that. It also has this like B-movie-esque feel to it, where it does feel like a very generic horror movie plot that is related to an adventure game. It's similar to Until Dawn. I do still think Until Dawn does it better. I mean, it's also by the same company. I still do think Until Dawn is their best product, but I do think Little Hope was an improvement from their last outing in Man of Dawn. I did enjoy this game more, even though again, at the end of the day, it's still not great. There's still a lot of dumb plot twists, a lot of dumb dialogue and character motivations, but like I did enjoy the mystery surrounding this game a lot more than I did something like Twin Mirror, where I got no choice out of that game at all. Little Hope here is at least a game that I could see myself revisiting at some point down the road. I didn't hate my experience with this game, but it's also just not an experience I can call a good one either, so that does land at number 17. Now at number 16, we're moving on to some actual real games with some actual gameplay instead of just being a straight up adventure game. But 16 here is a game that I was very hesitant about this game just in general for years before this game had come out, and now that it's out, I can fully say that Watch Dogs Legion is a massive disappointment. And it's not to say because I am a massive fan of the original Watch Dogs. I know a lot of people didn't like that game, a lot of people found that to be a disappointment. I love the first Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs 2, I felt like was a letdown from Watch Dogs 1, but still not an entirely bad game. Watch Dogs Legion here, though, is pretty bad. I mean, initially off the bat, I already had issues with the fact that there wasn't a solid main protagonist that you could play as any NPC within the game, which is a cool gimmick. The fact that you can recruit any NPC that you see in the world and do the recruitment missions, add them to your party, and through that can play them at any point. The problem with that is that from that point forward, you can't really have character development and character growth when there's no character to have development and growth. And because of that, I feel like with this sort of story, you have to very much rely on the villains within the game, and Watch Dogs just has terrible villains. I mean, they're very just generic, evil CEO-esque figures, and because of that, just narratively, this game completely falls flat. And from a gameplay perspective, it's just more of Watch Dogs 2, but even possibly slightly worse. I mean, I will say that, like, recruiting different NPCs and these NPCs all having different types of abilities, like, that's cool at least. I mean, there were points where, like, you had to juggle around between NPCs on how to approach a certain level, because, like, some NPCs had something that would make it easier. Like,
Alright, so we'll talk to Kuma, man. What was this?
Based around just that, I don't feel it makes this turn out to be a good product. Plus, also, I think we have added the fact that this game is extremely glitchy. This game has a lot of technical issues. There were a lot of frame rate drops and a lot of screen tearing. I pretty much almost any time I would be driving around the open world, there was some semblance of screen tearing. So again, I just couldn't justify putting this game any higher when there's not really any semblance of a real narrative. The open world is harmed by the technical issues.
Actually, let's do a backup save.
At the end of the day, and not enough to really support the entirety of the game. So because of that, Watch Dogs Legion has to land here number 16. Now at number 15, we have a game that I would consider just slightly better than Watch Dogs, in the sense that it at least has a story and has a main protagonist. But outside of that, I have many of the same issues with this game, and that is Mafia Definitive Edition. Now Mafia series I have never touched before, and it's fine. I mean, again, like Watch Dogs Legion, the open world is a bit of a mess. There's a lot of technical issues within this game. Gameplay-wise, actually, just like strict gameplay, I would say actually Watch Dogs Legion is probably better. I mean, like I feel like I enjoyed the combat sections within that game more than Mafia. However, the thing I will give a leg up to Mafia in is the fact that there is at least a story. I do think the character of Tommy Angelo is at least a likable figure in this game. Now I have a lot of issues with the story and how half-baked it is. I don't feel like the characters, particularly the side characters in this game, are as developed as I would like them to be, and because of that, it makes the narrative as a whole just kind of fall flat. But at least it has a story. At least it tries to tell a story. And while it has many of the same issues I do have with Watch Dogs Legion, I feel like at least Mafia does have at least a somewhat solid protagonist to really bolster it up a bit. So because of that, Mafia Definitive Edition ends up landing here at number 15. Number 14 is a game that I'm actually surprised is even this high on the list, considering how much backlash there was towards this game. But I will say I think Elysium, and that is
Somewhere around here.
solely on the single player of the game, and I actually enjoyed the single player. I mean, there were points in this game, especially early in the game, where I was like, this feels very Uncharted-like. This feels very much like a narrative-focused single-player experience. I know the creative director for this game was someone that wasn't at Naughty Dog beforehand, and I think you can clearly tell, like, it definitely feels like a lesser version of a Naughty Dog game, but you can tell that they're going for that sort of vibe early on, where you have the story of Kamala Khan and her going out and trying to get the Avengers back together after the disaster that happens at the beginning of the game, and like, that's an interesting part of the game. The problem is that the middle section of the game turns into essentially what the multiplayer is, where you have these more generic combat sections where you play as one of the Avengers and you just have to infiltrate this base and get a certain thing from inside a restricted area, and like, that's just boring, and that's really what I'm seeing. Now, by the end of the game, you get back to that Naughty Dog-esque gameplay that you see at the beginning of the game. With that said, I'm like, even though I did enjoy the beginning and the end of the game, it's like, at the end of the day, the combat system is still pretty shallow. It just feels like a really generic beat-em-up. Did not feel like that was particularly great. And also, even if this was a full-blown single-player experience, it's still not a masterpiece by any means. Like, even if it was not harmed by that bloat in the middle, I do think it would probably still only be like number 9 or number 10 on this list. Like, it wouldn't be that great of a game. So because of that, at the end of the day, I had to land it here at number 14. Now number 13.
HBO Max. Can't help popping. Fade the dark spots left behind with different dark spot correcting serum.
They are tartan red. 13, we're moving on to a game that I think is definitely the most polished out of the games that we've talked about so far. But it's also just a game that, again, is not really for me, and that's kind of why I struggled with where to land this. So at number 13, I did put Immortals Phoenix Rising. Now, this is a game that I think is technically definitely a better game than Avengers, than Mafia, than Watch Dogs Legion. Like, it is a better game, but at the end of the day, it's also a game that I just didn't enjoy playing as much as those other 3 games. Like, I did not really enjoy my time with Immortals Phoenix Rising. I mean, it is, for the most part, this open-world action-adventure game that has a kind of meh combat system. There's a lot of puzzles in the game that, I mean, like, some of them I did find fun, but there are also some that I did find really annoying. And there's a lot of annoying elements of the gameplay here, particularly with the endurance or stamina system, where climbing mountains will decrease your stamina, and sometimes you can get all the top and just, like, run out of stamina and fall all the way back
the bottom, like, and that's not fun. Like, I overall just didn't have that much fun with this game, but I do think it is technically a better game than the games we already talked about. It is developed by Ubisoft, who is a studio that has scarred me for life with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but I do feel like Immortals feels like the game that they want to make. Like, you can clearly tell when making Odyssey that they don't want to be making an Assassin's Creed game. They want to be making a game like this, and you can clearly tell when playing this game that you can see that they had more passion for this game than they did with Odyssey. But more things writing, it's like, while it does have similar issues here and there, I do think at the end of the day, it is a more polished experience. It is a game that does have more passion behind it, even though I do still think some of its humor falls flat at points. So it's kind of a mixed bag for me. It's not really a game I enjoy playing, but it's a game I do think is a better game than what to talk about. But it's also just not a game that I can justify putting that much higher on the list. So it's here number 13. Now number 12, we're on to the only game on this list I did not play on a Sony console here, as this game is not on a Sony console, as it is a Microsoft exclusive, and is the other game developed by Dontnod from the year 2020, and that is Tell Me Why. And I will say that Tell Me Why is essentially what I wanted from Twin Mirror. Twin Mirror as a whole comes off as a really dull, boring experience. It's an uninspired adventure game. I feel like Tell Me Why feels like a spiritual successor to Life is Strange. It feels like a story that could be in the Life is Strange universe if they really wanted it to be. It does have a bit of a supernatural element, kind of similar to Life is Strange. It does have this story based around the relationship between these two characters that the story revolves around, and does tell a somewhat compelling mystery story that you feel was missing from something like a Life is Strange 2. With all this, though, I feel like at the end of the day, it does feel like a lesser version of Life is Strange 1. I feel like while it does take elements that I really enjoy from Life is Strange 1, I don't feel like it does anything better than how they approached it in Life is Strange 1. I think the quality of the writing is probably better. Outside of that, I just found this experience to be a mostly kind of just fine one. Again, like, it's a fine game, a fine story, but not one that is going to be etched in my brain as much as the original Life is Strange is. At the end of the day, I did land it here at number 12. Now number 11 is a game that, this was a tough game to assess because it's so dumb and it's so plagued with issues, but I just had so much fun playing this game. So at number 11, we do have Maneater, which is an open world action RPG where you play as a shark, and it's so much fun. Like, I had so much fun playing this game. It's like the fact that I dislike so much of what this game does. Like, this is an open world RPG where the way the game progresses is that it gives you a list of tasks to complete within the overworld. Essentially, you're essentially just completing random objectives around the overworld without much context in the game. Like, there's no real story here. I mean, there is, but like, who cares about the story here? You're just randomly given these missions. Okay, kill a whole bunch of people on the beach, or kill like 10 turtles in this area, or like just random objectives like this that don't matter to anything. But I still found this game so fun. Now, another thing that does plague this game is technical issues. This game runs terribly on PS4. So many frame rate issues, so many lag issues, so many screen tearing issues. I mean, there's issues with the auto lock system where like there's certain times where like you push the button to attack and like for some reason it just completely misses the target, and it's really annoying. But I still had so much fun with this game. It's a ridiculous game. It's a game that I shouldn't like. Again, it feels very much like a parody of this open world action RPG genre that I've grown accustomed to. But because of that, it also makes it very appealing to me. It's not a masterpiece. It's a very flawed game, but it is a game I had so much fun with because of that alone. I'm excited to be here. Now number 10, a game that has so much controversy wrapped around it. And I was definitely a lot more positive on it at the time of its release, but I think as time has gone on, my opinion has slowly soured more and more, and that game is Cyberpunk 2077. And I talked about this in my spoiler review that I ended up doing. Cyberpunk is a game that I feel like I liked despite of itself. Obviously, it is a game that has massive glitches throughout the entire game. I did play this on base PS4, which is the worst possible way to experience it. But then again, I don't feel like I came across as many issues as many other people. I just had like a couple graphical issues, had some times where things weren't loading in properly. Like, things are bad, obviously, but things that didn't really harm my overall experience, especially when I really just rushed through the main story of the game. And I will say that main story is pretty good. I think the main story of this game, the story that revolves around P and Johnny Silverhands, like, that stuff is pretty strong. You do have some really great side characters within this game. The problem is that the narrative works, but the gameplay doesn't. And really, even if it did fully function as intended, I don't feel like it's even a game that would be that high on the list. I think at the end of the day, it is really just a Fallout clone. It is a Fallout game with the aesthetic of Cyberpunk. So again, I definitely have positives to say about Cyberpunk, but at the end of the day, it does come off as a big disappointment. But I feel like it's strong narrative, and the fact that I didn't absolutely hate my time with it was enough for me to land it here at number 10, despite all its flaws. Now number 9, at number 9, we have a game that felt very nostalgic to me. I feel like while this game might not be exactly what I'm personally looking for anymore in a game, I just had so much fun playing this game. And again, that is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Now, as a fan of Tony Hawk series, from when I was a kid, I knew I didn't play the games until around the time of Underground 2. Played a lot of the original Underground, played a lot of American Wasteland, played a lot of Project 8. And while I did play Pro Skaters 1, 2, and 3, I didn't really get into that style of game. But playing these remakes here of 1 and 2, it just felt really fun. I mean, it felt fun to play these more modernized versions of those games. And while like the game structure is not the ideal for me, again, I would rather be playing Underground or American Wasteland or even Pro Skater 4. It was still a lot of fun to be playing a Tony Hawk game again. Now modernized for the modern audience. Like, I feel like this game just felt like fun, and it felt really nostalgic to me. Again, like, it's not a masterpiece, again, that's on a scale as many of the games that we'll be talking about later down the road, but it's just genuinely a fun game. And it does take me back to the games I enjoyed when I was younger. And because I do feel like I have to give Tony Hawk's 1 2 here the credit for doing so, putting it at number 9 here on the list. Now number 8, and number 8 is a game that I'm kind of surprised at this time, mainly because I heard so many negative things about this remake when it came out, but I ended up really enjoying it, and that is Resident Evil 3 Remake. Now, Resident Evil 2 Remake obviously came out last year, and I had that relatively high on my list. The problem with Resident Evil 2, though, really the problem with Resident Evil 2 in general, is that it's not good for me. I'm not big into survival horror games, but I cannot deny that Resident Evil 2 is a perfectly made game. And now here, jumping into Resident Evil 3, I might even say, I think I enjoyed my experience with this game more than I did Resident Evil 2. Again, Resident Evil 2 is the better game, I think that without a doubt. However, Resident Evil 3 for me, again, with it being a shorter game, I think because I was able to enjoy it a lot more, I think Resident Evil 2 went on, not necessarily too long, but again, like, for me to be playing a survival horror game, I don't like the level of uneasiness I feel throughout the game. And to be having that over the course of an 8 to 9 hour experience can be a bit much for me, while Resident Evil 3 here, which was only a 5 hour experience, I felt like it felt a lot more satisfying for me as a whole. Again, like, at the end of the day, I mean, it mostly is the same for Resident Evil 2, gameplay-wise. You definitely tell they reused a lot of assets. Narratively, it's not nearly on the scale of Resident Evil 2, and really just feels like a thing where they're like, well, we already have the engine, we already have the assets, we might just do it. And like, I get that people can be underwhelmed by that, but I personally did still enjoy my experience with Resident Evil 3, so it does land here at number 8. Now, number 7, we're moving on to a game that I think I've grown and appreciated more over time. I think when I originally played it, I was kind of just a bit underwhelmed by it, but I think as time's gone on, my opinion has slightly gone up, and that is Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, which is more of Spider-Man 2018. I mean, for the most part, it is kind of the same game. I mean, most of the gameplay elements are exactly the same. There are obviously minor differences, most of those being attributed to Miles' personality and his differences from Peter Parker, but for the most part, it is a very similar game. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, I obviously really like Spider-Man 2018, and while I definitely have my issues with it, it's still a game I overall really enjoy. I mean, I think it is a really fun, open-world Spider-Man game, and I feel like Miles Morales does the same thing, but obviously on a much lesser scale. The narrative is on a much smaller scale, being a more personal story to Miles, which I do think actually works pretty well. I do think, while there are elements of it that do feel kind of ridiculous in the sense that, like, Peter's on vacation location elsewhere, so Miles has to take care of the city the entire time. Like, and that's kind of dumb. It very much just has those normal tropes of like a spin-off of like just having these dumb excuses for why the main character doesn't really show up in the game. But it still was a really enjoyable experience. I think it really developed the Miles character. I think it had fun enough side content, kind of similar to the original game. I like really at the end of the day, my opinion of this game is very similar to that of Spider-Man 2018, but just kind of lesser in the fact that it is obviously a smaller scale game. But it is a really enjoyable experience as a whole. It is more of Spider-Man 2018, which is always great. So for me, it lands here at number 7. Now number 6, and I will say that 5 and 6 here are interchangeable for me. It is very, very close, and I really struggle here with which one should be higher. Now, if you asked me like 6 months ago, I think the decision would have been very clear. However, I think as time has gone on, my opinion on one of these games has dropped significantly. However, I did not feel like it was enough to switch the placements. But again, they're so interchangeable. I don't think it really matters. But at number 6 here, we do have Ghost of Tsushima. And Ghost of Tsushima is a game that I initially was feeling really good about, but then by the time I finished the main story, my opinion of it dropped a bit, and then I did a replay of it immediately after I finished the first time. My opinion of it dropped even more so, but kind of in the opposite way, where like the first time I played the game, I really enjoyed the gameplay, but I really felt mad about the story. Then on the replay, I had the opposite effect, where I enjoyed the story a lot more, but I feel like the gameplay of it started to get really stale for me. And then now, at the point that we're at now, where obviously it's almost nearing a year since the game came out, my opinion of it is kind of stabilized a bit, where I do feel like narratively it is definitely better than what I initially assessed it as. I think the story of Jin and the journey that he goes on is actually a really compelling story, even though I don't think it's told in the best way. I do feel there are points within the story that does drag a bit, but I do think his overall arc over the course of the game is very strong. I feel like gameplay-wise, there are some really great bits of gameplay here within this game. I do feel like combat as a whole is pretty satisfying. The use of stealth is pretty strong as a whole. I will complain about the side content, though. I do feel like, even though I initially like the side content, I think as time's gone on, I kind of realize how shallow a lot of it is. Where it kind of gives you the illusion that it's this new thing, but then you kind of realize that it's doing the same thing as almost every other open world game, just like slightly differently. I feel like the way that the side quests are structured within the game is also just really boring. So those are some issues I had there, but at the end of the day, Ghost of Tsushima is still a really great open world experience. It's essentially the Japanese Assassin's Creed game that people have been wanting for ages, and I do feel like it succeeds in what it tries to do.
Traffic jam for the ages. Outer gates up the street are shut tight. No explanation given. Workers on. Meanwhile, we're all stuck here in long haul limbo for days upon days upon days upon days. Feels like forever. Like I was born on this here roundabout and this was all I ever knew. Just me and the metal and the tires, the oil and the fumes and the zoo.
My opinion of this game has soured quite a bit, and again, there was a massive debate for me over is this better or worse than Ghost of Tsushima, and I still decided it was better, but again, it's so easy at this point, and that game is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's so tough, because it's like, I think Ghost of Tsushima is more polished. I think Ghost of Tsushima is a game that knows what it's trying to do more so and executes on it. However, Assassin's Creed is serious.
Actually, I guess I should look up my comparison for my Sasuke video. I'm expecting it to be probably like number 7 or 8. Yeah, 7.
Valhalla, they do call back to so much of what I love from the
That's
previous game.
fine.
Something that it really hit for me at the time. Now, as time has gone on, you kind of realize that a lot of what they do there does come off as a bit hollow, especially considering the fact that almost nothing that relates to previous games within the course of the game.
It's probably on pace for like 400-ish views.
It's
not great, but I'm kind of content with that.
You know, I think she is a solid character. She knows nothing about what is going on with all these things that you call back to previous entries in the series, with the stuff with Isu, with the assassins, with the Templars, all these things just go over her head.
Imagine. It's been a whole week already.
Section of the game, like this part of the game that is very much called back to the previous entries in the series and this story.
So tell me, what do you mean?
Very, very separate parts of one pack. Again, it does something that are really great. Again, there are callbacks in this game that blew my mind.
He ain't one of us drivers. I know that. All accounted for. Otherwise, I haven't really asked about that. Been wasting time right here. Keep him busy.
Still not what Assassin's Creed used to be and what I want Assassin's Creed to be. But again, the high highs I had in this game are very tough to deny. Like, while I do have so many issues with this game now,
It's
like,
easy
it's
to
not
see
enough
he's
to
telling
put it
the
much
truth.
lower on the list because of just how
He's
the
kept
high
his
highs of
nose
this
out
game
of
are
the
the
dark
highest the franchise has had in a while. For me, I still felt justified putting it here.
Analyzing the fundamental structural and psychological conditions of being stranded in the midst of a sea of motor lorries and their sad, despondent chauffeurs.
So I could play Yakuza 0 through 6 before playing Like a Dragon here. And I decided I am
A sense of surprise there ain't more bodies hanging from more trees.
So there will be an individual video on Like a Dragon at some point down the road. As right now here, obviously it's at number 4. I really like this game. I really like Yakuza Like a Dragon. While it is a radical departure from the previous Yakuza games, which were these like beat 'em up games that focus around Kiryu, and this being a soft reboot here with us playing as Ichiban Kasuga, and it's turning it into a turn-based RPG system. Despite this radical departure, it works very, very well. I think Kasuga is a great character, a great character to be franchised.
No, I ain't got any
have
money.
a really solid turn-based
They don't
combat
want to
system
pay
that,
for
while it is
unfinished
really
work.
over-the-top wacky combat system, it does have some dumb things in it,
The
like
bosses,
fires.
man.
It works within the course of this game. And that's something that is so unique about the Yakuza series, that's able to mix these really wacky over-the-top moments with a really
Makes sense.
well-made, really overly serious
Sucks is
crime
what it
drama.
does.
And it again works very well. And I think something that also works very well within Like a Dragon here is the fact that this is an origin
It's
story
like
for Kasuga. And I think
whatever's
the background
going on
and
over at
everything
the
really
docks.
attached to the character,
Workers
and also
got a
develops in a really
blockade
fun way.
set
And
up,
Like a Dragon here
making
is a really
demands,
great reboot for
no
the
way
Yakuza
in
series.
or
However,
out.
I do have a couple knots for the game. I think the biggest one that really knocked it down the list for me is that there were a couple sections where you are forced to grind. I mean, there is some grinding.
Going on
Which obviously
strike
is a typical
will
trope
probably
in
help you
RPGs, but still a thing that I don't enjoy. And to be honest, again, in most modern RPGs, they've kind of taken away the need to grind. In games, I mean, there's never a point in like Persona 5 where I felt like I needed to go and grind. There's never a point in like Witcher 3
Maybe you
where
should.
I felt like I needed to grind. There's never a point
Cops
in
don't get
Next
paid
Level
much in
I
the
felt like I needed
hours
to grind.
alone.
And I feel like it does that in Yakuza Like a Dragon,
Plus,
where there
you
were
can
points
get
where I didn't need to
shot.
grind, where I didn't need to go to
Why
these
not?
dungeons and fight a whole bunch of enemies to level up. It's like that is a minor knock for me that keeps it off of the top 3 here, but it is still a great game with a great story, a great main character, a great combat system. It really is a really great game, and because that does land at number 4 here. Now number 3, and I
The
cannot believe
RCM
this
is a
not higher up, but there was a
self-managing
point where I had to put
organization
number 1.
that
I definitely
operates on
considered number 1
donations.
at the time that I was
We
playing the game, number 6
promote
then.
our
And not really that my
own
opinion of this game has gone down, it's more
Could
so
be like
the
striking
other two games are just
against
higher.
your
So right here, number 3, we do have
mother.
Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is great. I mean, it is a fantastic remake of Final Fantasy VII. What they were able to do with this game were making it,
But do continue.
the original game,
You
while
were
also
asking
keeping
about
the
the strike?
at points, while also modernizing the gameplay in the way that it does. It's really incredible what they were able to do here with Final Fantasy VII Remake, even though it's only like a third of the original game.
Some pretty wild stuff I hear. Like a giant new power crane in half the company? Forget what exactly. But on them, I guess.
I had it number one for a while. It's at number. There are sections of the game that come off as massive filler. There are sections of the
I've
game that
heard
I don't
talk
enjoy.
there's a company rep in town too.
That you go on your adventures
Like
with Aerith and
a strike
try to
negotiator type.
into sewers and to the
They
graveyard.
know what's up.
That section is just so boring to me.
Precise
I really just don't
demands
enjoy
and
that
so
section of
on.
the game, and that is the main reason why this does get bumped down a bit. Again, I have so much respect for a lot of things that this game does. This game is so incredible. I mean, it's one of my favorite games of the generation. It's up there on my
yes,
all time. I'm definitely
from
top
the
20.
Wild
But I do
Times.
really love
We'll
this
meet
game,
her
and I think it
soon.
really just shows how good of a year
They wanna
it
keep
was.
that money
The main
flowing in,
separating
my man.
these top four here are really
Ching.
minor nitpicks. Like, they're all fantastic games. But at the end of the day, for me, the knocks I have for Final Fantasy VII Remake do knock it down to number 3. Now we're moving on to number 2. The top 2 here. One of them I expected. The other one was a massive surprise. However, by the end of the process,
doesn't blame
I was pretty solid in my number
It's
one.
not on this
So at
side.
number 2, I do have
That's for sure.
13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, which is a game I don't feel like many people have played.
Anything else?
I had never heard of this game until Game Awards, where this
Yeah, this ain't really my area of expertise. I just do my job and get paid. I have things to do and places to be. All of us do.
It's really incredible. The type of story that this game tells is on a scale that you rarely see within gaming, and it's on the same scale of some of my all-time favorite narratives within gaming. I mean, we have stories like
Us
Red Dead
lorry
Redemption, we have
drivers.
stories like Persona
Cam,
5,
you nurse.
stories like The Witcher 3.
You still hang around here waiting for this mess to end. Most have scurried off somewhere to get drunk or high. Or laid. Not that I blame them, really.
This game's story is incredible. I mean, the way that it is able to tell its story is in a very unique way, where the entire game is
Not my
told in a
thing.
very nonlinear way, where you are playing as these 13 characters.
Chasing
At different
transient
points in
pleasures is a
timeline,
drag
and you slowly
these
piece
days.
together what is really going on
I
within this
prefer
world
the
and how these
examined
characters
life
are connected.
now.
It's really insane
Thinking,
what you're able
reflecting,
to do here with this
observing.
story, how complex it is, the fact that you need this timeline that is in game to keep track of when all of these events are occurring and to figure out what is really going on. It is really, really great. I really do love 13 Sentinels. It really
high-grade
really caught me off
narcotics,
guard. I really did
illegal
not expect all this to be as much
firearms,
as I did,
stuff
but
like
I did.
that.
And again, like for me, it is the debate between this and Final Fantasy VII Remake. I do think Final Fantasy VII Remake is probably the technically better game. I mean, like, I think it
He's
in terms of actual
merely
gameplay, I think the
joking.
gameplay itself, Final Fantasy VII is better. But for me, 13 Sentinels, while I mean, there are sections that do feel unnecessary, there's never a point when playing it that I felt like it was dragging. I never felt like I was bored by
no,
what was going
I'm
on. Like, yes, there are
joking,
certain
my
storylines that are
man.
better than others, but I still enjoy
Valve
the
runs a
entire
nice,
overall
clean
entire
business.
what is going
This
on here.
holo
Trying to
cargo is
piece
mostly
everything together, and that was
sporting
so much
goods.
fun for me.
You
So
know,
for me,
tracksuits and that kind of thing.
Just ran here at number 2. Now number 1. At number 1 here, I said this at the time the game came out, that this was going to be number 1. Then I did a PS4 exclusive ranking where I had the same at number 1. However, since then, my opinion of the game dropped. But then I replayed the game recently for the 1-year anniversary of the game and did a retrospective. And through that, it's back at number 1 here. It
They
is
usually
the
get
last
shipped to
part.
Grod
It's
in
so
the
tough for me
opposite.
to assess this game unbiasedly
Though
because
even
I am
making
very
headway in
attached
the
to
Il
the
Moran
first class
market
is
lately.
debatably my favorite game of all time. It's up there. It's a story that really hit me in many ways that in real
Not
estate
unless
gaming,
they've
and I was so attached
legalized
to
sports
Character Control
equipment
and
while I was on the
situation
road.
here in the last part 2 in a way that I wasn't expecting, but also in a way that I wanted. Was such a satisfying thing for me. Again, it's tough to talk about this game without talking spoilers. I talk about this so much more extensively in my game retrospective. I mean, if you want to hear my spoiler-filled thoughts on this game, watch that video. I mean, like, I go through everything. I go through the game from beginning to end.
This
Very
rockin'
much
beauty.
about the entirety of the game. While many people are
Sure
disappointed
is.
with many elements
Like a
of the
rash you
story,
can't
I
get
really
rid of.
do come out of my replay. I have so much appreciation for everything that they do here. Like, while there are certain things I am underwhelmed by, I just can't think of this game and not think of the brilliance of this game's
This
narrative,
one
its
looks
realization of its
rough
themes, the way
to
that it
be
portrays
some
characters, the way
sort
that
of
it satisfies
foul
everything I would have
rust.
wanted from a sequel of The Last of Us.
Maybe
Like, you're not going to get this happy ending
A6.
story in The Last of Us. That's not the point of the series. But in a series like this, if you can have a story that pays off its themes in a way that works with its story while also providing really compelling characters and relationships along the way, I do feel like it does everything that it tries to do. Not to mention the scope of this game, considering the fact that it is a single-player
Good
narrative-based
album, man.
experience that is for the most
Yup,
part
she's an
linear.
old one.
The expansiveness
Well
of these
reliable.
areas and the way that the game
Me
is
and her spent
designed
a
is
long
really
time
impressive to me
together.
as well. I mean, overall, it's like
We're
I
pals
get
and
why
all,
some people
but I can't just freely hand
Yeah,
out
they
the
were.
merchandise. The bosses won't be happy.
The man taps his fingers rhythmically.
I think we're good.
Don't be a stranger.
Alright, more 29 minutes. Wait, what is this here? Oh. How did we get over there? Oh, I didn't realize we could walk on that.
An old monument stands in the middle of the traffic island, pointing toward the sea. It looks as if it's been reassembled piece by piece, secured and mounted in the air with the aid of numerous ropes and rods. A silver plaque on the statue's pedestal reads, "I am Philip III, the Squanderer, the greatest of the Philippian kings of Revachol, son of Philip II, the opulent, father of Philip IV, the insane." As you look up, you notice something about the statue. There are some odd indentations on the king's chestpiece. Even by the standards of the Philippian kings, old sumptuous Philip was known for his profligacy. Well, he blew through the whole national treasury, starting the decline of one of the penultimate century's greatest superpowers, the suzerain of Revachol. His own maladministration foreshadowed the fall of the monarchy during the anti-centennial revolution, an end to his family line and the monarchy on the Insulindian Isola. Stories have it that he had his bedroom converted into a treasure chamber, where he stored unfathomable wealth. Krugerrands, bars of gold, ornate weaponry, armor, and various chalices.
I didn't finish listening to Big Brother update, did I? To be honest, I'm losing a lot of interest in this season at this point.
He called it the Sol Auron. It was obscene. There were whispers he slept on a huge pile of gold-dipped feathers, like some obese dragon, instead of a bed, like a normal person. But wait, you haven't even heard about his fabled cocaine addiction. You see, old Philippe wasn't just good at squandering the national treasury on gold and ceremonial weaponry. He was also a prodigious snorter of nose candy.
Leadership courses that we were assuming that he's been taking. Doesn't he learn like some empathy and to listen to the other person's feelings and like allow them to speak and not diminish what they're feeling by you having a different idea?
That's what the revolutionaries said 150 years later.
So it looks like 12 minutes is getting a bit of mixed reviews. Looks like mostly positive, definitely some negative ones.
His Majesty's courtiers said it helped him connect with the higher realms.
I hope you know that I want to take you to the end.
Beneath the cold waters of the Insulindian Bay, thrown there by the revolutionaries after they cleaned out the royal mausoleum.
Their thing with X that they talked about last week. Island says that
the original was blown apart by communards, then further damaged during the reign of the coalition's agents during the turn of the century revolution, when Martinez was a level.
Being jealous that he's more likable than them. And Derek's like, no, I agree. I mean, he is more likable than us, and he probably will
Most
beat us
historians
at the end.
think the coalition's hasty landing may have
that
ultimately
he seems to
saved the
recognize that
statue.
Xavier
If
beat him
the
in the end.
communards
I mean,
had more
that's
time, they would have reduced it
at this
up
point.
to even finer pieces.
But definitely worth noting for Xavier's game that the Kylan seems to be aware of this.
Some years ago, a group of liberal, artistically inclined individuals, designers mostly, thought it would be ironic to restore the statue of the most wasteful ruler of Revachol in the poorest part of the city.
Now, I just have a question. With this week's twist, is there a way
The statue is supposed to capture the moment it was blown apart, like an instant frozen in time, a rare butterfly trapped in amber, floating on a sea of
I just want
shit.
it to be shaken up a little bit. I know that it's interesting for sure seeing if the cookout can actually get to the final six, because it is still a bit of a challenge, but it's a lot easier
People
for them
in
to do
Martinez
that than I think
tend
it
to
is
disagree,
for
as do
a
many
non-cookout member
prominent
to be
art
able to
critics
get to
and
the end.
thought
So
leaders. with more nuanced social awareness than
It's
the
very
young
unlikely. The
ironists.
roulette twist is very likely to prevent, like, even if they wanted to take
Philip
a shot at the
III,
cookout,
the Squanderer,
it would
however,
be
with his
incredibly
bronze
difficult
face
for
up
that
in
shot
the air,
to land
doesn't
because of
seem
the twist.
concerned about what the
Whereas
hoi
it
polloi
would take
think of
the
him in
cookout,
death.
it would take them really screwing up the twist's benefit, not the cookout.
Not that he ever did a knife either.
I mean, maybe we can go with that. Good plan, Hansa.
Something with great kinetic energy seems to have impacted the cuirass, around where the heart is. Bullet?
So, Alyssa talks to Claire and Tiffany. They talk more about the vote.
Someone
Alyssa
shot him in
thinks
the
that
heart.
Brittany would put up
Interesting.
Island and Sarah Beth, whereas Big D could put her
Okay,
X up on the
I
block.
can
Plus,
see it,
Big D
but
and
I
Big
take
D
your
Wade
word for
can
it.
just start bossing around, telling them to do dishes and all that stuff. Alyssa's
Well,
really on
Martinez
this,
is riddled
thing
with
about,
bullet
like, you know,
holes.
she really feels
This
like
place saw a lot
that
of
she
action
starts
during
to
the
feel like,
revolution.
maybe keeping
But the
Brittany
statue
thing,
is
that
recently
is very
renovated,
bad
so
for
maybe
the
a
people
joke?
who don't want this to gain
Target
momentum,
practice
because it's
or
not only
political
the
statement?
group of Derek, Claire, and Tiffany and Hannah and Kylan are supposed to be wanting Brittany
Why
to stay,
not?
but also Alyssa
What this
is
shows
on
us is
board,
guns
and,
aren't too uncommon
and
here,
she's trying to get
and
X
people
on
still
board,
shoot
X
them.
is shutting it down,
Sometimes at
and
kings.
Tiffany and Hannah are shutting it down, and now all of a sudden you really have to start thinking. But Tiffany is
King stands high above you, surveying
and she
the
says,
bay,
well, I can think
head
Big
and
D would go
indifferent
after
to your
Kai and
side.
Sarah Beth as well, hates Sarah Beth. And if you think about it, the
I think 1 year.
Beth would, because she
Next episode continue on. I don't know if I'll do another one after this. We'll see.
and she then turns it back to the story of what happened last week and how they were all she got into an argument with the Jokers because of the Christian vote. And this was very clever from
Wait,
Tiffany.
I'm trying to remember.
She starts talking about, like, don't you know
What
about
save
that
is
argument,
that?
Alyssa?
Oh, wait, this is
Like,
the
oh, it was
precautionary
a
save we did, right?
Well, I got into an argument with
Yeah,
you
so we can
because,
delete that.
you know, Brittany was saying that you and Christian were cornering her every second about the vote. And
So in here.
and Alyssa's like, oh,
Next episode continue on. For now, thank you for watching.